Welcome back to Kings of the North, live from Las Vegas and live from Bill Landis's home. What's your address again, Bill?
It's 5. No, I wish I was in Vegas.
Yeah. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Although
at
I'm sick, so good for you that I'm not in Vegas.
It's 116 right now on
Oh,
my
that would have
watch.
been good for me to sweat out my cold, maybe.
It's down from 118 earlier, but it's all anyone talks about. It's like we're all here in Vegas and it's hot. We get it. So that's not interesting content. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. I am here at Big 12 Media Days. We are going to have a full show posted on the Kings of the North feed on YouTube and on podcast platforms very soon. 6 different interviews that I did on Tuesday with players and people from Cincinnati, Iowa State, and Utah. And then we will do the same thing on Wednesday with players and people from Colorado, West Virginia, and BYU. Maybe some other media members sprinkled in. I think we might get Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, on Wednesday. But Bill and I are here to sort of talk about, just be chatting ball because people seem to like that. And there was some stuff that happened, Bill. And, I was just trying to get the stuff plugged in. Do you know we have a new board that can do this?
Yeah.
It has sound effects.
Oh, we didn't hear them. No, we didn't hear them.
Oh, wait.
So we'll figure it out.
Do you hear that?
Oh yeah, like a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, I got to learn.
We'll get it figured out. We do need to pump in. We need to pump in applause for sure.
Yeah, fake applause because we're not going to get them for real.
That's right.
So Brett Yormark, the commissioner, came out aggressive, and it's a reminder of why the Big 12 is still in existence right now, because I think they have an aggressive commissioner, and he was aggressive on Tuesday. And did that filter back to Ohio, Landis?
It filtered back to me. I don't know if people in Ohio were locked in to Big 12 Media Days. If they were to tell them though what Brett Yormark said about the Big 12 conference and its depth relative to the rest of college football, I think they might have a bone or two to pick with that.
So he said that the Big 12 is the deepest conference in America, and it is a fascinating thing here. And actually, I just give away the other thing. So there's other interviews that I did that we're not going to put out yet because we're going to add Kansas State and Kansas to the North soon. And so I talked to a bunch of Kansas State people. We're going to save it for the Welcome to Kansas and Kansas State show. But some of the people I talked to there were especially interesting about this. It's weird when you cut off the head of the snake and then there's just like a big snake body laying around. And it's like, I don't know, that snake body's pretty big and thick, right? But it doesn't have a head. So it was a 2-headed snake with Oklahoma and Texas, but there's a big, thick, robust body still lying here that's pretty good. And that's kind of the vibe here.
It's like the Hydra, like in mythology, you cut off its head and then 2 more would sprout up. This is you cut off the head and just the body elongates, but no other head actually emerges. No. It just continues to get longer, but impressive thickness nonetheless.
Impressive thick. That's a good Big 12 shirt. Impressive thickness. It's just, imagine if the Big 10 lost Ohio State and Michigan, and then Penn State and Minnesota and Wisconsin, Nebraska all showed up and were like, hey, we're ready to go. Let's do this thing. We've sort of talked about that with Penn State just not having divisions anymore. Penn State's like, we're ready to do this thing. Imagine if Michigan and Ohio State were gone. That's what this is. And I think initially you lose that and the reaction is negative. There's not actually a positive. We're going to maybe try to do it. There's not actually a positive spin to Texas and Oklahoma leaving, right?
I think it makes for a much more compelling conference.
Well, so that's what Brett Yormark's trying to lean into. So he's emphasizing the depth, right? But it's the depth stands out more because there's not a blue blood at the top.
Yeah.
But the depth is also legitimate. So when he said 2 things. 1, the Big 12 is the deepest conference in America. And 2, we're one of the 3 best, and he thinks we'll be the best down the road. So you don't survive by saying we're number 3. So I get him being we're going to be better than the Big 10 and the SEC, because if he's not going to say it, nobody is. But that's not true. The depth thing might be true though. Couldn't this be true? Might it not be true?
It might be true. I don't know. I think it's easy to conflate like depth and parity and competitiveness. Like I don't know that they're all three the same thing. Parity and competitiveness are probably the same thing, but I don't know if they're the same as depth necessarily. Like if you truly lined up like the best 8 teams in the Big Ten and the best 8 teams in the Big 12, like is the Big 12 going to win more of those games? I think probably not. I don't know. Maybe this year they would. I would push back a little bit on this is the deepest conference in college football because that to me is like a comparison of like the quality of teams relative to like other conferences. But what I do think makes the Big Ten the most interesting league in college football is the fact that there are like 7 teams that are like kind of all the same. So, but there's like no sexy way to say that. So I think you just come out and say that this is the deepest league in college football. And we sort of know what you mean by that, even if I don't necessarily agree with the idea that it is actually the deepest league.
Does the deepest league mean like our 7th place team would beat your 7th place team?
I think so.
So is that true?
I don't think it's true.
Game?
I don't think it's true of like the Big 12 and the SEC.
All right.
Let's play the game.
Here's the predicted order of standings. This was the preseason media poll. 39, 49, 53, 61 votes. I voted in this. So I'm one of the 61. Utah was first. They got 20 first place votes. Kansas State was second. They got 19. Oklahoma State third at 14. Kansas was fourth with 5 first place votes. Arizona was fifth with 3 first place votes. So 5 teams got first place votes. Iowa State 6, West Virginia 7. And then I'll draw a line there because I don't know about UCF and Texas Tech and TCU like 8, 9, 10. Then we're at Colorado. Like I think it's the top 7 that matters. Is that fair? You want to draw a line at West Virginia?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. So like you and I both think that all 7 in the top 7 could win the league, right? Do we think that Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, West Virginia all could win it?
Yes.
Okay. So who's going to be the 7th best team in the Big Ten?
Michigan State, maybe? No. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon are the top 4. Iowa's 5. You go like USC, Wisconsin, like you're in that territory. USC, Wisconsin, probably those 2.
Nebraska, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Rutgers. Did you watch the T-Shoe show, by the way, where T-Shoe took the under on Rutgers?
Yeah. I thought you were actually going to cry.
I know. I thought I was going to actually cry too. So like, that's the thing. So is this conversation and who's the 7th? We don't cover the SEC. Do you know who the 7th best team in the SEC is? There is no 7th. They're all the best. They're only number 1. My last Stetson Bennett impersonation, I was listening back to it on another show, was awful. Completely lost it. I have to do it every show now.
It a little bit?
I'm losing it.
Keep it sharp.
I think it might be true that if West Virginia is picked 7th, they might be better than the team that will be picked 7th in the Big Ten, and they might be better than the team that will be picked 7th in the SEC. That might be the definition that Brett. We could ask for clarification. That may be what we're talking about here with deepest.
If that's the case, then I want to throw the hypothetical at you. West Virginia versus Iowa, who you got? You love both those teams. Can you pick one?
No, I can't.
Pass?
Pass. Yeah, no, but we'll find out. Like the Iowa State-Iowa game is going to go like a long way toward determining this because that's like, right, that's like the 6th best team and the 6th best team. So it is one of those things. Do you feel like Brett Yormark might believe that it helps the parity argument that they don't have a great team? Right? Is that like it's counterintuitive, but he's trying to make a negative into a positive, right? By saying that.
Yeah, and I don't even how much, I guess, like it's a negative in the sense that like if they had those 2 teams, they'd be making more money, right? I think you can make the argument from like a football product standpoint that this is better. Yeah. Because like if those 2 teams are still in the conference, there's just no intrigue. Like one of them's going to win. So
right.
Like Brett Yormark would probably prefer to have the bigger bag that would come to the Big 12, have had those 2 teams stayed in the conference, but I don't think he's off base by arguing that like, no, like this season is going to be more compelling and more interesting. And you're going to like watching us play ball because those 2 teams are gone.
Because I think we have to do this. We have to separate the ball from the money. And the Oklahoma, Texas, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia discussion, when we're doing that, it's a money discussion. It's a TV ratings discussion. It's a media property discussion. It's not the same thing as a football discussion. So we don't care about media properties and all that stuff and money. We don't care about money. From a football thing, are you saying that you would maybe prefer a conference where you delete the top two and create intrigue, parity, confusion, and controversy, and that makes for better football?
Yeah, I think it makes for better football, and I also think I don't like sort of believe in the notion that the regular season has been watered down because of the expanded playoff. I actually think it's been enhanced, but that's one way that I think it's been enhanced, right? Like if you have a conference where you truly believe that 6 to 8 of your teams can win it, which is the position that the Big 12 is in right now, like that's going to be awesome, especially if they're only going to get one bid, right? So I like watching Ohio State and Georgia go at it for sure, but I think there is an argument to be made that, like, from a pure football standpoint, something like this might be preferable.
The other thing that I think is interesting is sometimes when you're big and famous and rich, you're a jerk. Not always. And sometimes small, unfamous, poor people are jerks too. So I'm intrigued by that because one thing was, just like being here, there was people, I've never been here before. There are people here at Big 12 Media Days who said they were surprised at the media turnout, that they thought it might be smaller. So it didn't feel empty. It didn't feel sad, right? It felt robust. Like, hey, people care about this. But Texas and Oklahoma hover. Like when we go to Big Ten Media Days, Ohio State and Michigan are going to hover over everything, aren't they? Like, and again, it's not that it's bad, but it's just different when you have them and when you don't.
Yeah, no, they hover for sure. Like, and it's, I guess, less so now because I do kind of split them up. But like, even I was doing some interviews for our Ohio State podcast that we do, and one of the writers I was talking to said, like, I wish I was going on Tuesday so that I could like be there when Ohio State's talking. Like, and the team that they cover is not talking that day. So like, they wanted to be there because Ohio State is sort of that big of a presence at conference media days that they want to make sure that they're in attendance to hear what Texas and Oklahoma, or not, excuse me, what Ohio State has to say. And it would be the same way with Texas and Oklahoma. They would just like overshadow everything. Like if Texas and Oklahoma were in this conference, wouldn't all anyone asked about today be like those two teams making the playoff and trying to win a national championship for the conference, and like little to nothing else would have been discussed?
And Arch Manning. Yeah.
And Arch Manning, because he's in the video game.
Yeah. No, I think it would. So I felt like there's just a lot of ball talk. Now, listen, Brett Yormark got up there and talked about like their Microsoft agreement and they're going to have video media. I mean, that guy is someone, you know, who's been around the Big 12 saying like he's a showman, right? They had Vegas showgirls here at the thing, but I guess if you're going to have it in Vegas, you got to have Vegas showgirls here.
Did they have Bruce Buffer there, like introducing the coaches? They should have done that.
Is he the guy? Is he the guy who does like the?
He's the Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy.
The Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy.
Michael Bruce Buffer and Michael Buffer. It's Michael Buffer. Yeah.
Michael Buffer. No, they did not have him, but they did have a hot breakfast that was better than like a continental breakfast, which I think is like trying to make sure it's like, hey, like we're still the Big 12. So, do you think the Big 12 is going to have trouble getting traction this year? Because here's the other thing. So we're going to have the Kansas State show coming up, but I felt like I had a good conversation with Gene Taylor, who is the Kansas State athletic director and was on the playoff committee for 3 years. Okay. So I asked him some playoff questions and I said, are you curious / concerned about the Big 12 getting a second team in, given your experiences on the committee?
Mm-hmm.
And he said that in the committee room, I said, like, you know, going up against the 4th or 5th team from the SEC and the Big 10. And he said that in the committee room, people really value making your championship game, and that he thinks the Big 12 title game loser, having reached that, will just carry extra weight compared to the 4th or 5th team from the SEC or the Big 10. I think there would have been room for him to be like, yeah, I am concerned, and I'm sounding the alarm right now. You better not screw us. Right? Like I always, you have to consider what could someone actually say as an answer as you consider their answer. I think he could have said that. right? Like I've been in
Yeah.
that room. It's nothing against my fellow committee members, but I've seen tides of perception and blue bloodness and big time conferences sweep through the room. And I'm worried about that. And he didn't. So I was curious about that because regardless of TV ratings and money, there is a perception thing at play here that I'm very curious how it plays out for the ACC and the Big 12 when it comes to the playoff. Do you think the Big 12 should be worried?
Yeah, I do. I don't know that I believe that simply making the Big 12 title game would carry that much weight. I really, once you get past the 4 conference champions and the group of 5 team, I guess, like I really think it's just going to be about how many wins you have in that column. Like if you're a team that made it to the Big 12 championship and you lose and you're like 9-4, you had a good season, but now you're 9-4. I do not think that team would get in over like any SEC or Big 10 team that has 10 wins.
Because depending on the schedule, I would maybe think that Big 12 team could have a better collection of wins and a better collection of losses than the SEC or Big 10 team, depending who they played, right? Like if you're an
Yeah,
SEC team and you didn't play Bama or Georgia and like you lost to LSU and Old Miss, and then it's like, hey, we're the But meanwhile, there's going to be Big 12 teams that have played Iowa State and Arizona and West Virginia and Kansas State and Utah. If we really are going by ball, I think they might have a case, but I don't know. I don't know how the perception of this entire year is going to play out when it's tilted so far towards the SEC and the Big 10 in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the parity and competitiveness of the league will make for, I think, the most compelling week-to-week football product, but it might actually do them a disservice when it comes time to pick playoff teams, right? I think that's the worry because I just don't know. Shoot, the champ might not have 10 wins. Like they'll get in because they're the Big 12 champ, but like there's absolutely a world where the Big 12 champion has 9 wins, right? So maybe not. Maybe that's it's possible. If I'm not saying it's likely, but it's possible. So like that doesn't help the conference. I don't think. I just don't know. I guess I don't believe that the committee would be like that discerning. I hope they are because I would want them to make decisions based like off of ball and being able to assess the Big 12 as a really strong football conference. But I don't know. I'm just fearful that they're going to give the nod to an SEC team because they played a FCS team and a couple of lower level G5 teams and managed to scrape their way to 10 wins, even if those 10 wins aren't all that impactful.
Because there's parity and then there's the perception of parity. And I feel like the SEC, like beneath the big dogs, there's a perception, maybe even parity is not the right word, but there's a perception of strength that I sometimes feel like isn't true, right?
Yeah.
Which goes to SEC bias, which goes to what people not in the South have been talking about for 20 years, which is every time an SEC blue blood loses, it's like, wow, the conference is so strong. I can't believe that you give credit to the team that won and you don't take much away from the team that lost. And it feels like in other conferences, if a blue blood loses, it's like, man, what's wrong with them? And you don't give the credit. So I think there may be a world where West Virginia and Iowa State and Kansas State and Arizona are like actually better than Ole Miss and LSU and Texas A&M and Florida and everybody who's like in Tennessee and Oklahoma, the tier below Georgia, Texas, Alabama. But I think the result may be that the Big 12 beats each other up and the SEC doesn't beat each other up as much, but somehow gets more credit. You know what I mean? Like the parity perception favors the SEC, but the parity in reality hurts the Big 12, which is why Brett Yormark is going up there and banging the drum now.
I think you're right. I think it's right to be worried about that. And like you look at, we've done 2 playoff projections now, and like as we put those together, like I look around to see what other people are picking. I don't see a lot of 2 fields that have 2 Big 12 teams in them. I don't see a lot of fields that have 2 ACC teams in them either. But we're not talking about the ACC. We're talking about the Big 12. Like I think that perception like almost already exists, and they haven't even started playing games yet. So I'm hopeful that there's a way for the Big 12 to like get around that, right? If it's just like banger after banger every week in the Big 12 because these teams are really good, maybe there's a way to change that perception, but I do kind of think it exists already.
Why does anyone think that Ole Miss is a better football program than Kansas State? Like, Like, that's kind of my argument, right? I don't even know if it's an argument. Because I think I've been putting Ole Miss in the playoff, and I've been putting Kansas. It's like
Right.
Missouri. It's like, all right, Missouri. What about Arizona? What about West Virginia? Oh, I did put West Virginia. You know what I mean? Like,
But I'm guilty.
I
I didn't put 2 Big 12 teams in mine. I only
you're
put 1.
guilty.
Yeah,
I'm calling
guilty.
you out. I'm talking right at you. This is you.
Right.
I'm like acting like it's the world. It's you,
right.
Landis.
Next playoff projections, I'm putting 4 Big 12 teams in.
Yeah. So I think, Brett, your mark, it's one of those that you have to come out hot, right? And coming out hot is part of why they're here to begin with. Because one of the conversations, and again, I would direct people to our full recorded Kings of the North, where we have interviews with 6 different people. One of them at the end of that show is John Cunningham, the Cincinnati athletic director. And I was sort of saying, like, what if you were sitting here right now and you weren't in the Big 12? You know what I mean? Like, how nervous would you be? And instead, Cincinnati and John Cunningham kind of get out ahead of the game and got into the Big 12. And so, like, in a lot of ways, like, the Big 12 is a good place to be, but I don't think that's the view in college football. And but who cares about the view in college football? I'm curious how the committee sees it, because that's really all that matters. The rest is just podcasts. I also would wear that shirt. The rest is just podcasts.
Well, and there's a world, right, too, where I tend to be pretty skeptical of the committee being like forward thinking in either way, but I suppose that there's a pathway to them kind of expanding their mind a little bit, right, or thinking differently about the sport now that they have to seed. I guess not seeding 12 teams. Oh, no, they're seeding 12 teams.
Yeah,
they just have, like, this is a bigger field, so like I don't think the same calculus that they've used to pick the 4 teams is going to work to try to pick the 12, right? So maybe if they're watching games the way they say they do throughout the season, the Big 12 can grab their attention and maybe get them off of the mindset that I'm a little fearful that they already have.
Yeah. Okay. Can I talk about a punter with you for a little bit?
Please do.
Yeah. Mason Fletcher is going to be your best friend. Cincinnati brought its punter. Were you excited that Cincinnati brought its punter to Big 12 Media Days?
I love it. I don't know how often that happens. Iowa's had to have brought a punter. Like Torrey Taylor went to Big 10 Media Days, right? He was their best player.
He had to, right? Yeah. So did you know, and I don't mean to ruin, because we're running it first. I thought I told Mason Fletcher that we're probably going to do like punter of the week on Kings of the North during the season, as selected by you, and try to have them on. So like I'm priming him to be on the show during the year. But so he's Australian. We talked about it on the show already, that his brother Max is transferring from Arkansas to Cincinnati. He's going to redshirt this year, and then he will be the Cincinnati punter for the next 2 years. So this will be Mason Fletcher's 4th year. But he's Australian, and his dad played Australian rules football. And so he said they just like would punt the ball around like in the yard. I said, like, when you were growing up, you like in America, it's like your parent would be like, hey, let's go have a catch, right? Like Field of Dreams. Do you know they do that in Australia with Australian rules football and punting?
Yeah, go have a kick. Yeah.
You know that? Oh.
I'm pretty sure I had that exact conversation with Cameron Johnston many years ago at Ohio State. Yeah.
Here's the other. So there's only one conversation to have with an Australian punter. There's actually 2. And then you also know that the balls in Australia are made of kangaroo hide. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
It's kangaroo skin. Like instead of pig skin, it's kangaroo skin. Oh. So then we talked about whether they just go around murdering kangaroos to make balls out of them. But we decided we think the kangaroos just die of old age and then they scoop them up and turn them into balls.
Have you? I have had a kangaroo burger before. Have you ever?
No.
No.
Yeah. Where have you had it? Have you had it in Ocean City, New Jersey?
No, I was in Australia. Yeah.
What? First of all, you've been in Australia. Oh, I guess we eat deer in America. Yeah. I think a kangaroo should be like a revered species. I think anything that walks on walks upright is like, that's human enough for me. I'm not going to eat it.
I thought that it was, and then I got to Sydney, and they're like, "Hey, do you want a kangaroo burger?" And I was like, "You guys eat these things? Not bad. Not bad.
Its meat is delicious." Did you?
I've had worse.
Did you think it was good? You've had worse. Yeah,
it was pretty good. It's very similar to like a venison steak kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't know if it is actually greater intelligence in an animal that makes it walk upright, or if it's just like coincidence. But I respect an animal that walks upright more than an animal that's on all fours, right?
Like you wouldn't eat a monkey. You'd never eat a monkey.
I wouldn't eat a
Probably
monkey.
for
I wouldn't
multiple
eat a
reasons.
kangaroo.
But
I wouldn't eat a
a
kangaroo. You
kangaroo?
would.
Yeah.
I asked about Ocean City, New Jersey, where you and I and Jim Knowles vacation because they had a restaurant there for a while that like they just had every imaginable animal that you wouldn't normally eat. You could go eat there. So that's where I chose not to eat a kangaroo there. So, okay. So we had a good punter conversation. He said he's in for the KOTN punter calendar. So that's good news.
Oh, great.
And
That's
then
1 month down.
And then you and I have talked about Gardapalooza for a decade. Would you like to tell the audience what Gardapalooza is?
I can't remember. So it was the impetus of it was Ohio State's 2014 offensive line. Is that right? Or was it
I think
2015?
so.
Around
Probably.
that time when Ohio State had Billy Price and Pat Elflein playing guard. And it was just like they were just two dudes, man. They were like kind of the engine that made the thing go. And then it resurfaced a little bit too, I think, when Ohio State had Wyatt Davis and Jonah Jackson. Two guys were pretty high NFL draft picks. So Gardapalooza is just like, it's just an appreciation for the art, man. People don't talk about them enough. People talk about tackles all the time. No one ever talks about guards. And guards, I think, they're an undervalued, underappreciated asset in football. We want to highlight it.
Yeah. And then it was when we were both at Cleveland.com, it was like the Browns built their whole team around guards. So for a while,
Wyatt
it was like
Teller and who was the other one?
And Joel Bitonio. Joel Bitonio is going to like go to the Hall of Fame as a guard. So I kind of let Luke Kandra from Cincinnati, who might be the best guard in the country, in on Gardapalooza. And then I tried to ask offensive line questions, but you weren't here.
Sorry. you could have patched me in.
I know I should have. I should have just did like in Cyrano de Bergerac, right? Where Cyrano has a long nose, so he can't talk to the cute girl. So he has to whisper. You've seen the Steve Martin version, right? Roxanne?
Roxanne, yeah.
So that would be me of like, you would be whispering. You would be whispering in my ear questions to offensive linemen to make me, because I don't really know what to say. And you have a cold. You're not here.
Yeah. I think you just created a new KOTN segment.
Asking about outside zone. So I had a good conversation with Luke Kandra, and then talked to Corey Kiner from Cincinnati, and Jalen Noel from Iowa State. Told him where we ranked Iowa State skill guys and our Northern skill rankings, and he was like, "I'm okay. I respect Ohio State and Oregon," but he said he would have put Iowa State 1.
I like the confidence, and I think Matt Campbell was on like the main stage doing his interview. I don't remember if it was Noel or Higgins. He said he thought played like one of the best receivers in the country last year. I think it might have been Higgins. Really? Okay. Yeah, that's like the little bit that I caught on TV as I was doing some other stuff throughout the day. But they believe that they have two of the best receivers in college football. So why shouldn't the players believe that?
So I also talked about it on the other show. They gave us a sign.
Nice.
I was so happy. We're official. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I wanted to do here, it's a funny thing to go through and explain to people what this is. And almost everybody, when you start to explain Kings of the North, they go. But about 15 seconds in, they go. And most everybody like sort of came around on, yeah, I get it. And there's like a layer of like the South can cram it that exists in all of us, and we're just vocalizing it on behalf of everybody else. But it did seem like there was some level of appreciation for the South can cram it. Let's talk Northern ball.
That's interesting because you're in mixed company there. Like, how were people in the room upset that you were pumping up the North when half the league there is in the South?
No, because it was like they were like Arizona State people walking around. I was just like, I don't care about you. I wanted to yell like, "Hey, Arizona State, you're not invited on this show." So, and Arizona State, like they were being like very out there. I could have had like everybody associated. Well, good for them, but like not very good at football. So, they were trying to get the word out. But yeah, like the Texas Tech mascot was here. What's his name? Big Tex? I don't know. What's his name?
I don't know.
Red Tex. Tex Red.
Somebody Sam. I have no idea. Yeah.
The most ridiculous thing was like at the media hotel, we were all waiting for the buses, and like the Texas Tech mascot came out, was like waiting for the bus. It was like being in one of those like ESPN commercials where the mascots are just around like in real life. He was just like waiting to get on a bus. I was at a bus stop with a Red Raider whose head was this big. So
shout out to him for wearing that outside in that heat too.
Yeah. And then the Oklahoma State Cowboy and the West Virginia Mountaineer like met up and like were showing each other their guns. So that was good.
Nice. That's
But
good.
the Oklahoma State Cowboy has like a big plastic face, and the West Virginia Mountaineer is a man.
Oh yeah, it's just like a guy like wearing a raccoon hat, right?
Yeah. Like if
is
you
the
put
beard
on
real? Is his beard
the
real?
beard is real. Yeah.
Okay.
I overheard him talking about that once upon a time, like some guys, the beard wasn't real, but his is real. If you
Nice.
put on a raccoon hat right now, I think you might be the Mountaineer. Like you could just claim it as long as you have the beard.
I would be honored to be the Mountaineer. I don't know if I have the mentality to be a Mountaineer. I'm too sheltered in my city life to be a Mountaineer.
You ate a kangaroo. You're fine. You can be a Mountaineer.
Yeah.
Its
true.
meat is delicious.
Did you talk to Mike Gundy about drunk driving casually, or no, did that not come up?
No, I will say Mike Gundy's hair is just it. I feel like he's trapped now. Like he's gone so far down the road. It's gonna be like Coach K. The Coach K just had jet black hair until he was 78. Mike Gundy is just gonna have it. It looks like a raccoon hat. Like it really. Like there is so. It's like from the back of his head. It's like 8 inches out. It is so thick and lustrous.
Yeah, there's a lot of volume there. Yeah.
There's a lot of volume there. I don't know if I can't imagine it's real volume, but we're only making fun of him because he made light of drunk driving. It's not funny. Do you have any questions about Big 12 Media Day? Or should we just let people go?
I was mostly just curious about the reception to the premise of the show, which you touched on, because this was like a lot. You went to the Northeast a little bit, and I know you've had some interactions with like SIDs from most of our teams, but this was sort of like the first time that KOTN has kind of been out there in the world, like outside of the Big Ten footprint, especially. So I was just wondering what the reception would be.
Yeah. So we're still, we're fighting a little bit of an uphill battle. It was like the Utah SID was very nice. And she was saying how like Kyle Whittingham loves to ski. And she's like, well, that'd be something good to talk about. And it's like, I didn't come within 100 feet of actually getting Kyle Whittingham on the show because his team was picked to win the conference. And then Mark Harlan, the Utah AD, was very nice and very into it. And then like was going to come over, and then it just kind of didn't happen. Stalked Matt Campbell, didn't happen. But I'm just a man with a sign right now. But just wait.
That's right.
Just wait. A year from now, they'll be lined up. They'll be lined up for KOTN. Baylor's going to be begging to get on.
I did see that. So Utah's playing Miami in that stadium in 2027, and Kyle Whittingham was like asked about that game. He's like, I'm not going to be the coach then. It's like I'm not going to be here for that game. Like, okay.
Well, let's talk about that quick. We'll wrap up with this because, I mean, this is sort of news, right? It's since we had our last show, the idea that Utah had announced that Morgan Scalley, the longtime defensive coordinator, is officially the coach in waiting at Utah now. There was this phase in college football when everybody was doing the coach in waiting. The funniest one was that, like, the first couple they did, James Franklin was the coach in waiting at Maryland and then left to be the head coach at Vanderbilt before he ever took over. And famously, Will Muschamp was the coach in waiting at Texas and left to take over at Florida before he ever got the chance to do it. And then it feels like coaches in waiting kind of went by the wayside. What do you think of coach in waiting? And what do you think of Morgan Scalley lined up to be the next Utah boss?
Yeah, I don't think I love the idea generally, but situationally, I think I can get behind it. And this feels like a situation that I can get behind. Like Utah just feels a little unique, right? It's not. I don't necessarily mean this is like a backhanded compliment, although it probably will come off as like much of Utah's identity is Kyle Whittingham, right? It's not necessarily sort of like inherent in the program.
Yeah.
But you obviously want to maintain that after he's gone in any way you can. And this feels like a way to do that. And it also, too, when you're a program kind of on the level that Utah is, you are susceptible to kind of like falling off a little bit if a coach like that leaves. So I like the idea of kind of getting your ducks in a row beforehand. So maybe it'll come back to bite them. I don't know. But in this particular case, I kind of think it's smart to try to keep the infrastructure of what Kyle Whittingham, I guess, like starting with Urban Meyer, but it's mostly Kyle Whittingham at this point.
Yeah.
What Kyle Whittingham built there. I think it's smart to try to hold on to that.
And it's how Kyle Whittingham got the job. Not that he was a coach in waiting, but he was the defensive coordinator promoted to head coach. And so I do think sometimes, I mean, it's a good way to keep an assistant that you love who might be getting offers to go do something else. But I think Utah is the right level to do it, right?
Yeah.
Utah is the right level to do it. And I did ask Junior Tafuna from Utah about Michigan and Washington last year, and he was excited. So like the North noticed the North, right?
Yeah.
And that the people in the North who did it, that it wasn't Ohio State and it wasn't Oregon. I think they did it and we can do it is real, because I think that applies. We've made Utah Michigan comparisons before, and this is absolutely taking nothing away from Michigan, but it's all it is you're not, the number one thing you do isn't recruit 5 stars, right? There's a developmental aspect in there. There's an experience aspect in there. There's an under the radar recruit. Now, good recruiting, but it's not Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, and now maybe Oregon or Texas recruiting, right? It's not that.
Yeah.
And I do think they did it, which makes us think we can do it, is alive and well in the North. And that excites me as well. That like I think it's very tangible, which is why Kansas State's going to be better than Ole Miss.
Yeah, like obviously there is a baseline level of talented that you need to be to compete for a national championship or make the playoff. But there does seem to be like a growing sentiment that being old and experienced matters. And like if you're a team that's not in that upper echelon of recruiting, like you probably think to yourself, like, well, we can get old. Like we can find a way to get old. And like maybe we'll be all right if we can get, like, we got to have some guys for sure. But if we can get old, we got a shot at this thing. And I think we had the discussion. That was not merely that was not the only recipe for Washington and Michigan last year, but it was part of the recipe for Washington and Michigan. So I would understand why any team might grab onto that and think they can do the same thing.
Last thing, Chris Kleiman, Kansas State head coach. I asked him if he owns a snow shovel, and he said he owns the best snow plow in Manhattan.
Oh,
which was kind of like a humble brag, right? I mean, like that was like throwing it down. So if you know somebody in Manhattan, Kansas, who you believe owns a better snowblower than Chris Kleiman, please let us know.
What a flex. I love that. What a great answer.
Yeah. So he was the head coach at North Dakota State, so he brought it from there. That's why.
He drove it from Fargo to Manhattan when he got the job.
Oh, and the other thing is, I'm just teasing the other show because you should go watch the other show. I asked the Cincinnati AD to play Pitt a lot because I said we wanted to float on a barge between the cities.
Oh, did he have a line on the barge or no?
Oh, no, I didn't ask. He said it was nice, like he and his family drove to Pittsburgh last year. And I was like, we're not talking about driving, we're talking about barges. But I do think like the idea that he was very big, like he said this, that an idea when your conference is way spread out, then you focus your big non-conference game locally. So he said like Cincinnati wants to, like they've played Indiana, they have Boston College on the schedule in the future. He didn't promise to play Pitt 4 times every 10 years, which I would love them to do. But that focus does make sense because I think you have to have cool games that your fans can drive to in the non-conference. There, like he said, there's no reason that like we're not going to go play Oregon. That's exactly what he said. Cincinnati's not going to play Oregon because they're already in a conference with Arizona.
Yeah.
So then they're going to play Indiana, Purdue, Pitt, West Virginia, whatever, which we're down with.
Yeah, and they played Ohio State in 2019. I don't think they have one on the books in the future, but I wouldn't mind seeing that like sporadically. Like I don't want to see it all the time because I think we know how that game is going to go. But yeah, if Cincinnati wants to schedule some like mid-tier Big Ten teams regularly, I'm definitely down for that.
But let me ask you, do you believe from the Ohio State standpoint, has it reached the point that like it reached with Ohio State basketball where like they would never play Dayton, and then it was such a big deal when Dayton beat Ohio State in the NCAA tournament and the Dayton Daily News said like the University of Dayton because they're now good enough. Is Cincinnati now good? I mean, they practically beat Ohio State in 2002, but is Cincinnati with what they did under Luke Fickell, and now that they're in a Power 4 conference, is there nothing in it for Ohio State to play Cincinnati where when they weren't in a power conference, it was like, okay, we'll play them every now and then because like, come on. I don't know that Ohio State would do it anymore. It'd be great, but I don't know if they do it.
That's an interesting question because I don't know, like, is Cincinnati that much different of a team? So like just like roster wise, but then like you get more credit now if you're Ohio State if you beat them or they're a Power 4 team.
That's true. Like you're like on equal footing now, right? So I mean, like. I don't know. I'm curious the lens on that because I think you could twist it either way, that it makes it more likely or like really unlikely.
Yeah.
Because now they're like when Cincinnati beat Notre Dame the year they made the playoff. Like if that had been Ohio State, like that's a body blow to the Ohio State program. That then Cincinnati, until they play the Buckeyes again 20 years from now, I guess just like pound their chest about that. I don't think Ohio State would like that, even if it's a 1% risk, you know?
Yeah, they definitely would not like that. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be back with a live show tomorrow night, just kind of wrapping stuff up. But go to our feed on Kings of the North. Find it on podcast. Find it on YouTube. We have a show up Tuesday today with a bunch of interviews, and we'll do the same on Wednesday with a bunch of interviews. And then we will be welcoming 2 new schools to Kings of the North in the near future. And that means we'll be talking Kansas and Kansas State along with everybody else. But we'll have a Kansas State show to get everybody acclimated to what those 2 teams do. So you're good. Anything else?
I'm good.
I'm in Vegas, baby. Vegas. I'm a Doug in Vegas.
What's the plan for the evening? Gonna hit the buffet or what?
So the buffet at the hotel I'm at was like $70.
What?
I also went to like a pizza place on the Strip. It was $80 for pizza. It was $16 for a slice. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if everyone's brains melted here, but like you can't live here. You can't function here. I would have packed food if I knew. I haven't been to Vegas in a while. I had no idea. I bought a granola bar for breakfast before I came over here. It was $5.65 for a granola bar.
Holy crap.
So I can't eat.
Yeah. Well, enjoy your free water. Yeah, enjoy your free water from the Big 12.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, it's cool to be in Vegas. Just everybody should have their media days in Indy because Indy is just functional. So, but do you think, I think the Big Ten will have a Big Ten championship game in Vegas at some point. I don't think they'll ever have media days here. Do you think the Big Ten will make an incursion into Vegas sooner than later?
I do. I agree with you. I don't think it would be for media days, but I do. I foresee a Big Ten championship game being played in Vegas.
Yeah, it's a good stadium. Okay. Thanks to producer Mike Yerstowski. Thanks to you guys for making Kings of the North part of your college football week. We have a new camera. We have a sign. We have a board. If I can get that. Let me see. Try this again. Do you hear anything for that? No?
No.
You don't hear that at all?
Oh, I got that. Yeah, but it's like not coming through my. It's not. I think it's like coming through your mic.
Oh, man. All right. I got to work on it.
Yeah.
I got to work on the sound effects. They're going to take my sign away. All right. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. Thanks to you guys. That was Kings of the North live from Las Vegas.